So a week after I have released my sub-rogue guide, a new build has been found. Well, I say a new build. In reality, it's an old build that we're going to be reverting back to with some slight nuances. Basically, Dark Brew is competitive. Everything in my old guide is still perfectly good and up-to-date information. The only difference is that you have an alternative here if you want to try and play with Dark Brew. Dark Brew is actually just as good. Before it was behind by about 2 to 3% from what I understood from my own sims. Now it's almost exactly the same. There is no real difference. Everything is within sort of 1%. So you can play this build if you want to, and I absolutely will be playing this build because it is much simpler. So what are the changes and why have they come about? So if we go and have a look at Raider.io, you will see that a lot of the top players have already swapped over to Dark Brew. So if we come here, you can see Yar is currently playing with Dark Brew, one of the best rogues at the moment. This is a high key of 27 underrot. There is then also from Taiwan, I assume China, but it's showing up on leaderboards from Taiwan, Dark Brew here as well. So because the top rogues are playing Dark Brew, there must have been a reason. What was this switch made for? Well, it's because the shadow damage increase portion of Dark Brew actually double dips on the Secret Technique clones, which is most of the damage from Secret Technique. We don't know why it's happening. It's something to do, we think, I say we, the theory crafting community with whitelisting of the damage amps. So the double dip on the damage amp actually means that the shadow damage increase affects Secret Technique. Probably, in fact, it is definitely our hardest hitting ability and where most of our damage comes from. It affects it twice. So that's actually a really big gain for Dark Brew when compared to Flagellation. Because of that, we're now playing with Dark Brew, at least at the top end. It's seeming that it is looking really, really good and is absolutely competitive for Mythic Plus. So what does this mean for Mythic Plus and also for raiding then? We have new alternative builds in both scenarios. So if we hop back into WoW, you can see here this Mythic Plus build is almost exactly the same as we've been playing previously, as in my previous guide. But we have swapped Flagellation over for Dark Brew to gain that extra shadow damage that I've just been talking about and the way that it interacts with Secret Technique. So this change is almost exactly the same as we were playing previously. There's no difference here to how we played Mythic Plus in patch 10.0. So if you've played Subtlety in the past, this is going to be an old favorite and you should be able to rotate back into this very, very easily. For single target in raids, this is the setup for Dark Brew. The difference here between how you're playing in patch 10.0 and what you're going to be playing like now is the fact that we have dropped improved Shadow Dance for planned execution. The reason why we have done this is because of the massive increase in damage that we get now with the tier set. Because we get this critical strike chance from the tier set procs of Symbols of Death, it's absolutely worth taking this over improved Shadow Dance. That does slightly affect our opener in comparison to how we're playing in patch 10.0 again. But if you played it previously, it's very, very minor the difference in your opener. So you'll fall back into this very, very quickly again if you've played with it in the past. But what we will do is we will go over the openers for both of these. The priority lists, my old guide still works perfectly. You just delete out Flagellation from the priority lists and you'll be absolutely fine. The only difference is the opener. So let's go and have a look at the openers and we'll see how these play out in real time. So here I have a single target opener with the Dark Brew variant of the talents. I have links to both of these talent setups in the description down below if you'd like to go and get them. The difference here to previously is simply the fact that we no longer have Flagellation and also that Shadow Dance has a slightly shorter window, so we'll talk about that nuance when we get to it. But otherwise it's very, very similar. If you've gotten used to what we were doing before with the opener, you'll fall straight back into this and it'll be very, very easy. And like I said, in the long term, I actually think that this is an easier build that does just as much damage. And in reality, because it's an easier build, you will likely do more damage with it because you're not having to track and play around as many cooldowns. Alright, so let's get this started. It's running at half speed, so we will be able to cover the opener in detail. What we'll do is we'll start off with a Shadow Strike from Stealth. We'll then be using our Shadow Blades and Potions. We then use Gloom Blade. We're now going to use Rupture. And now we're going to go to Shadow Dance, Gloom Blade, T plus Eviscerate. We then use Shadow Strike into Trinkets here because I've got Fragment. We're then using Secret Technique plus Cold Blood, Vanish, Shadow Strike into an Eviscerate. The difference here is that we can't vanish twice. Okay, so that's the big difference, is that we cannot vanish twice. If we go back and look at this again, so if I just pull it back here, By the way, for anyone who would normally be using any other trinket, unused trinket, say you're using the PvP badge, just use it when you pop your potion, you'll be absolutely fine. I'm using the fragment to get a really big secret technique landing. You can also use the fragment here with this T essentially, and you'll be doing just as much damage in reality, but I like to see big numbers, so I'm using it here. That's a very minor note. But we play this back, so here you can see we vanish, we're going to Shadow Strike, then we're going to eviscerate. We don't have time to use the second vanish and get the increased damage from the vanish Shadow Strike inside of the Shadow Dance. Before we could have got off 2 vanishes in Shadow Dance, you can't anymore. It just means you use your vanish in the next Shadow Dance window. That's it though, it's almost exactly the same. Like I said, we just don't have flagellation anymore. Let's have a look at the AoE opener. Alright, so again, we are in our Dark Brew variant of the Mythic Plus talents. Literally, it's just swapping around flagellation with Dark Brew. Link in the description down below again if you want the talent setup. This variant is obviously for Mythic Plus. AoE, I don't even know if I would run it particularly in raid on assault, for example. I'm not even sure if I would. I'm probably just going full single target there. But in general, this is what you'd want to be playing for Mythic Plus in this AoE build, okay? The difference here is literally just we're not using flagellation again. Basically, that's pretty much it. But we'll go through the opener in detail. So let's start this off. We're going to be Shadow Striking from stealth. We're then going to use Shuriken Tornado, and at this moment in time we're waiting. If you see here, this is going to be the first tick of the Shuriken Tornado. We're waiting until just before it, and they'll be using Thistle Tea plus our Shadow Dance. So here, this is Thistle Tea plus Shadow Dance, and that's going to hit the first Shuriken Tornado and then allow us to start using finishes. So there, we've just used a Rupture. So as soon as we could spend after the Shuriken Tornado, first is Rupture. Okay, so we've used a Rupture. Then we use a Black Powder. Here I'm going to use Fragment into a Secret Technique just because I'm lining it up there. If you have any other trinkets, so you use Fragment into Secret Technique plus Cold Blood. Any other trinkets, just send them with your potions back here and you'll be fine. Other than Beacon from Beyond, if you use the Beacon, Beacon needs to be used outside of Shadow Dance, and really you want to use it after your first Shadow Dance, so bear that in mind. But in this sequence, any other trinkets, you know, badge from PvP for example, you would send it here. And then we use Black Powder again. We're then going to use Symbols of Death. Then we use Shadow Strike, and then it's Black Powder. And at this point, we're just into our normal rotation. We're using Fan of Knives, spreading our Ruptures again, and then we'll be going into Black Powder as our next finisher after that. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, very, very similar. The only difference is we're no longer playing with flagellation. So it's really, really good. It's just as good in my opinion, if not better, because like I said, because it's easier, you're probably going to end up doing more damage in practice in Mythic Plus. It's also pretty much exactly the same as how we were playing in the previous season, so any veteran sub-rogues out there, this will be great for you. You will be able to revert back to your old ways when you didn't have to use flagellation. That's it though, hopefully that all makes sense. Like I said, everything in the old guide is still relevant. Right, all of the old priority rotation lists, etc., they're pretty much exactly the same. You can just get rid of flagellation. The openers are slightly different, and we have gone over them. The builds are linked in the description down below. If you want to ask me any questions, potentially catch me live, you can head on over to Twitch. I'm streaming keys with viewers on my rogue. I can answer any questions every single evening, pretty much. You can find me over there. I'm also available on Discord. You can come ask me any questions there if you want to ask me anything. And then finally, thank you very much to all of my Patreons. Honestly, it means the world to me to have patrons. They make a massive difference. The small amount of revenue that I get from content creation is massively bolstered by consistent revenue. So even though I don't have many of you, honestly, thank you so much. It really does mean a lot. If you'd also like to support me beyond a subscribe, you could find me over on Patreon and potentially have a look at what else I offer there if you're interested. Otherwise, hopefully you have enjoyed this video. If you have done, we will see you guys in the next one. Peace.